Buffalo. Let's go Buffalo. Let's go Buffalo.
And is that the clock I hear? I guess it's time for the Mafia Minute. I am Magnum Mills, and I'm basically here just to set up Jamie G. He calls himself Esquire the Fifth. No, he is not legally allowed to defend you in a court of law. There's a whole thing to that. We're not going to spend time on that now. The Soup Doozer should be around here somewhere. We don't have him right now, but we're hoping to have him back soon. This is, again, the Mafia Minute. Please do not forget to check us out, or the Flaps. Follow, like, and please subscribe wherever you get your pods. On the YouTube, you find us on social media at CZGapFF, and that's basically it. Jamie G, take it from here, brother.
Well, Magnum Mills, I am Jamie G. Esquire the Fifth, and no, unfortunately, I cannot defend you in a court of law. I am fired up on the Mafia Minute. It's all things Buffalo Bills right here, right now. Go Bills!
Yeah, the Dolphins thought they were cool, and maybe not so cool, right, Jamie G? But you know what has been like cooler than the other side of the pillow? What Outcast might call cooler than a polar bear's toenails? That's Josh Allen's performance, man. The last three games definitely laid out the dud in week one, right? When he had 3-4 turnovers, week one, been killing it since then. What do you think has been the big change, the big impetus? Like, what has got him rolling like this now?
It's a couple of things. So it's really a three-pronged approach. When I look at the progression of Josh Allen, and for the rest of the league, I think it's pretty scary to realize this when you start to break down the film. Number one, the offensive line has played a lot better. They've been keeping them pretty clean. They were attacked pretty poorly throughout the offseason and after week one. Everyone said, man, that right side of the line's terrible. You know, what are we doing? Well, a couple things. Spencer Brown's playing very well at right tackle. Rookie guard Osiris Torrance that they drafted in the second round is really a good player. He's playing well. You look at Deion Dawkins, I think he's having a little bit of resurgence here. This might be his best year ever. And then I think the guard that they signed out of Dallas, Connor McGovern's been really steady. So I think the offensive line's played a lot better. That's the first thing. Second thing is we got a little bit of a run game. I really like the progression of Ken Dorsey at offensive coordinator. We have a run game, and it's something now that Josh doesn't have to be the best player every single play, making plays every single play. He can rely a little bit on this. James Cook has been fantastic through the last couple of weeks here. And when that's not working, dude, shout out Latavius Murray. The guy's in his 30s. He's playing really well, and he's a bona fide weapon on this team, and he adds something different with this pounding type style that they want to do. And he showed today a little bit what he can do in the passing game. And then, of course, let's not forget the offseason acquisition from the Patriots and Damian Harris. So they've got a little bit of a run game going here. I hope that continues. But third, the last thing here is Josh Allen has been smart. I think, watching this guy throughout his career as a Bill, when he makes a mistake and he loses a game, he takes it so serious, man. And you can see how he improves. I think it was his second season. He had 3 picks against the Patriots in a game that the Bills should have won. And what did he do? He threw 3 picks. He sat down with Brandon Beane. He sat down with Coach McDermott, and he said, this one's on me. I am going to be better. I'm going to put in the work. I'm going to be better in the moment. And by and large, he has. You never want to take away what makes him great and his ability to create and things like that. But he's been taking the short game. I watched several times against the Dolphins. He could have went down the field, but instead he dumped it off and they picked up a first down. He could have went down the field, but instead he took a sack or he ran out of bounds. These are things that it sounds simple, but this is a big progression and why you've seen Josh Allen the last 3 weeks be MVP level Josh Allen. And let's just shout out this offense, man. I mean, 38 against the Raiders, 37 against Washington, and 48 against Miami. I mean, this is an offense that's really humming right now.
Yeah, and I'll kind of just give you 3 back. Do you think Latavius Murray has pulled ahead of Damian Harris kind of as the RB2?
I think he has. I think they really like the way he runs the football. I think they trust him in blocking situations. Look, you're going to see, Damian Harris involved, but I think they like what Latavius Murray gives him here. I mean, and I think it's showing up in the snap count. I think Latavius Murray has more snaps than throughout the first 4 games, honestly, than Damian Harris.
From an athletic standpoint, Damian Harris is Latavius Murray has one of the best free scores in history because he's a tall, huge dude. He is very fast on a straight line, not so much with the agility, but if you get him going downhill, that's definitely a dimension that you didn't have before. Any thoughts on kind of the mess at wide receiver 3 behind Davis and Diggs? Nobody really stepped forward today. It seemed like Hardy maybe made a play. You've seen Sherfield come in there. Any thoughts on that, position? I was hoping Shakir would take a step forward, but doesn't seem like it's going to happen.
I was too, and Shakir almost came up with a really big play today. I mean, Josh Allen put it right in the perfect spot. He just couldn't come down with it. It's interesting, man. I think that it's certainly something that's undecided, but I don't necessarily know that it's a problem. I think they want to get Hardy involved because of his speed. They would like to see Sherfield involved because they like his physicality and his speed. You got Khalil Shakir that you drafted in the 3rd or 4th round last year that they like. But, oh, by the way, we've got this new shiny, sexy toy in our 12 personnel with Dalton Kincaid. We saw him today get a lot of, get some targets and put together a decent day. The guy's got great hands. So I don't know that it's as pressing as an issue as I want it to be, but I would like it to be solved sooner rather than later. But I can't remember a time under Josh Allen's tenure here where we've seen him spread the ball around this much. And for me, I think it's a great thing. And I think, again, being able to have a little bit of running game when the weather starts to turn, when we need to put teams away, this is a balanced attack that we haven't seen under Josh Allen, I don't think, ever.
And I would say third thing here, the double Ds. I was all in on Dalton Kincaid on my DFS lineups, and he got some targets, but I think he only wound up with 4 for 26, but he did seem to be more involved in the offense. And shout out to Dawson Knox. I know he had one great catch. We kind of like ran over the dude and did a little crab walk thing or whatever. That was really cool. What do you think about the double Ds, man? Is this like 12 package really the way to go? Is this going to basically, eliminate the need for that third wide receiver to step forward? Can they really do this on a consistent basis and, impose their will and make this their base package maybe?
I think they can, and I think that's what they're getting at. But I like the fact that they go to it and then they mix in other things. If you're an opposing defensive coordinator, this is a tough offense to defend even without it. When you add this in, and now because when you go into the 12 personnel and they can run the football out of it, it is really hard to defend. And Dawson Knox and Dalton Kincaid are 2 really good tight ends that do a lot of things well. Dawson Knox probably more well-rounded in terms of his blocking ability and just his experience in the league. But Kincaid is flashing, and they're not overusing him. He's not, he's not putting up. He's a better football player now than he is a fantasy asset. I think that can change over time. But he's making plays and he's moving the chains and he's available kind of in the middle of the field as a security blanket for Josh Allen. I don't know that Josh Allen's had that in a while. So I really like this 12 personnel because, again, they can run the football out of it, and now you got some weapons down the field that are mismatches. And I think a lot of the NFL nowadays trying to find a mismatch.
And shout out to Dawson Knox, Dawson's Creek. One of my buddies from Buffalo calls him the Fortress. It's the one catch he makes like he's a flying fortress or something. Really random nickname, but I always thought it was cool. And he reminds me a little bit of Zach Ertz, a guy when he came in the league was more of a receiver-based guy. And then because of the way the team worked out, he had to really work on his blocking or whatever. Like Dawson Knox was never really a blocking first tight end. And that's kind of what he has to become a little bit. And I give him a lot of credit for really putting the time in and, doing his best to do it. That's kind of like changing your whole identity. And him and, Kincaid seem to get along really well. So I hope they work as a pair. And, obviously, shout out to Big Uglies. I think the offensive line got it done this week. How about the defensive line, man?
I am so excited about this D-line. And again, some of our, it's so weird because it's virtually the same defense as before. There's a couple of new pieces and there's a couple of different things, but it's Sean McDermott's fingerprints on this and not Leslie Frazier's. And again, not to put down Leslie Frazier. It's not one's better, one's worse or anything like that. I prefer the aggressive, nasty nature of a Sean McDermott defense. And it's showing up every week here in terms of getting after the quarterback, sacks, and they're not even doing it necessarily with blitzing. They're doing it with disguise. They're doing it with the front four. I just want to call out Daquan Jones. He is an absolute animal that is completely underrated. Nobody really talks about him. That dude is a monster. And obviously, Leonard Floyd was a phenomenal signing in the offseason. You're seeing Gregory Rousseau take that next step. You're even seeing AJ Epinesa take that next step here and making plays kind of consecutive weeks. And Ed Oliver, he got paid the big contract. A lot of people talked about it. Was it worth it? Was it not? Based on these first 4 weeks, I think it was worth it.
That reminds me a lot of the Eagles, where Sean McDermott ultimately comes from, that Andy Reid coaching tree. They would draft heavily on the offensive defensive lines. And a lot of times, because they were deep, it would take guys years to break out. So what would happen is they would ultimately get signed to a contract extension, which looked like too much at the time. And then 2 years later would look like they were underpaid. You've seen that with the Eagles with, Fletcher Cox, Derek Barnett, Josh Sweat, Hassan Reddick, a lot of guys, even though Reddick was an original signee. That's the way they've kind of operated. And I think the Bills are operating that same way. Right now, if Ed Oliver keeps doing what he's doing, he's at least he's going to at least get the, into that fourth year of that contract, I think, bare minimum. So from a player standpoint, it means you're playing pretty damn good, I think.
Kind of the elephant in the room here is this defensive line is creating this amount of pressure. I mean, 9 sacks last week. Going into this game, I think Tua Tagovailoa was only sacked once. They got to him 4 times, plus a bunch of hits. This is without Von Miller, right? Von Miller is coming back to this defensive line, and this allows the Bills the comfort to not have to force him in, and he doesn't have to take on all the pressure. They can kind of ease him back in here. But I'm telling you, man, come November, December, Von Miller is going to be a part of this defensive front, and it has potential to be special. I really believe it, especially if the Bills can get a lead and force teams into obvious passing situations. They are really going to be a tough out.
Yeah, I mean, you remember they did this without Jordan Poyer this week with Tre'Davious White going down. And on top of that, I think what's important is that you have to remember that the Dolphins were the quickest team as far as the passing game. I believe that Tua was averaging only, 2.67, 68, something like that, seconds per dropback. That ball was coming out. Today was one of the first times where, for better or worse, even with Waddle being back, who didn't play last week, when they scored 70 points, you managed to slow him down, screw up his timing enough that you can see he's not a guy who can create out of structure. I think that's the thing with Tua. No matter which way you forced him to roll, as soon as he had to start to roll, he just doesn't have that aspect to his game. Whereas Josh Allen, maybe that's where he's at his best. And you were the first team, I think, this year that really legitimately forced him out of that legitimate comfort zone where he's just not getting the ball away right away, and you might have created a blueprint for how teams attack them going forward.
Again, emphasis, there was a couple batted down passes. Look, dude, that Miami team is a good football team, and they're going to be really good. They're going to win a bunch of games this year. The Bills will see them again. They'll have a different plan. But the way they played them defensively, it was really the first 2 series of the game, it was 14-14. I said, well, shit, I'm glad I took the over in this one. But I was like, wow, is this just going to be a straight track meet? Once the game slowed down a little bit, this is where you get to some inside baseball stuff. I thought it was so cool to see the chess match between Sean McDermott and Mike McDaniel and how they attacked each other. And, today McDermott got the better of them. We hope it happens again. But that defense, for as much concern as there was, it's looking pretty good. Now, we didn't come out without concern heading into next week. And Magnum Mills, we got some injuries, don't we?
Dude, that sucks, man. That's the worst part of football. When Trey White went out, and we'd actually have a conversation between friends about this, what do you do? When someone gets hurt, do you want to see it again or not? And that was where Trey White went down, and we couldn't quite tell what happened. And then when they showed it, and I said, oh man, that's it. Because of the way he did it, I just remember Kobe. I'm like, that's the way he grabbed. I'm like, that's an Achilles. And I felt so bad, but it looks like it's an Achilles. And, that's a compensation injury probably from his previous ACL. And that just sucks all the way around, man. Take football out of it. Trey White, I'm glad you got paid. I hope everything goes as well as possible for you. That just sucks, dude. Non-contact. You tried so hard to get back. It's just...
Well, he worked so hard to get back, and following the Bills as closely as I did, this was the first major injury. The ACL in 2021 on Thanksgiving Day was kind of the first major injury Trey White had to face. So it was one thing to get back physically. It was another thing to get back mentally. And he comes back last year, and he's kind of grinding it out through the back half of that year. Then he has to watch one of his brothers go into cardiac arrest on the field. And Trey had such a hard time with that mentally. And to see him come back and be putting together a really good start of the season. He had the big interception last week in Washington. He should have had a pick six in this game early in the first half. To see him go down like that, and to just see how physically upset he was and disappointed, knowing that it must have been something serious, it sucked, man. That's going to be a big loss. And to top off the Trey White thing, we saw Christian Benford, who's played pretty well and kind of a steal for the Buffalo Bills. I think Brandon Beane got him in the sixth round.
Out of Villanova, right? Benford's out of Villanova.
Out of Villanova. Yep, and he's played really well. Earned the starting job came in the same draft class that they spent the first round pick on a corner, on Kiara Lam. So Benford gets banged up. Then you see Johnson go down. Now it looks like Benford and Johnson are going to be okay. Both came back into the game, but this is a serious loss for Trey White. In comes Dane Jackson, and I think we're going to have to dress Kiara Lam right now, which is interesting because he's been a healthy scratch throughout the first 3 weeks. Is he ready? Is he not? We don't know because we haven't seen much of him. But losing Trey White, and this is going to change the Bills' defense a little bit, but it's got to be next man up.
It's show up or grow up time, and you spent a first round pick on the dude, and that's kind of where you're at, right? You saw how you shipped away Boogie Basham. Remember, you thought, we sold low. Have you heard the words Boogie Basham since you sold him? So time to step up, maybe, and I'm just trying to say that as the semi-neutral host who is still definitely hoping that the Bills win, but you know what I mean? You have to be a little bit, I think it's the time, right? Like, this is what you drafted him for.
Absolutely. You spent a first on him, and you took him over players like McDuffie, who we've seen, carve out a starting role for Kansas City, and others. So he needs to step up and come into this space and at least contribute. I still think it'll probably be Benford and Dane Jackson, but look, man, that third corner is going to play. So, he's going to dress on game day. He's got to be ready, and I hope he is.
But it's not unheard of that a dude like that could come in and do, first round pick, especially at the cornerback position. Not unheard of that all of a sudden the light bulb clicks on, and lo and behold, that's who you draft.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
There's a chance. There's a chance.
There absolutely is. I remember back in the day with the Colts, they drafted these young corners and they were getting torched, and then all of a sudden the light bulb clicked, and now it's like, man, that was a strength of their team. We hope that's the same for Elam here. Hopefully, sitting on the bench, getting a chance to see the game from the outside helped him. Mills, that brings us to one of my favorite parts of the Mafia Minute. It's time. We're celebrating a Bills win, baby. Hey, it is time to put something on our mannequin. Now, I've been thinking long and hard about this. The Bills, look, it's only 4 games in, but they deserve a little bit of reward. Our mannequin deserves a little bit of reward. This week, I am going for a nice new chain, baby. I want to get them some bling. I'm talking about, maybe it's colorful, maybe it's gold, maybe it's diamonds, but this thing better sparkle. It better shine. I'm talking about a chain for our mannequin.
That's funny. For some reason, I thought you were going to go with a fish tattoo. I think a nice gold rope chain, like a solid rope chain, old school 80s, like New Jack City rope chain. I think that's where it's at.
I love it. I love it.
Still would be there for the fish joint, but
Hey, man, it's only week 4. We got plenty of time.
Yeah, I mean, the dude's got a lot of clothing to put on. Again, we're doing a reverse major league thing here. So. All right, man. How about the Mafia moment? This was week 4, huge win. The Dolphins themselves were arguing that they should not have been the underdog coming into what we used to call Rich Stadium. Now Highmark Stadium, soon to be, I guess, Highmark Stadium 2.0. Jamie G, Mafia moment, week 4, brother.
Part of me so bad. My honorable mention was the Stephon Diggs second touchdown where he broke free from those 2 tackles and went just streaking down the sideline there and got in and did the Stone Cold Stephon Diggs thing with the beers. That was incredible. But I got to give it up to my boy Josh Allen. All right, he gets his rushing touchdown. The dude threw what did he throw? 4 touchdowns, ran for another one. He gets his rushing one, and he does if you're watching this right now, he does the emoji that's thinking with his hand on his chin. And I didn't realize this until after the game. I kind of wondered what he was doing. But after the game, I realized that all the Dolphins players wore a shirt on the plane heading to Western New York to face the Bills, wearing a shirt with that emoji on it because they were mad and they were pondering how come they just put up 70 points and they're not the favorite in this game. Well, I just love that savagery out of Josh Allen, and it was awesome. And that finding it out after the fact catapults that to my Mafia moment. And I am still riding so high and on cloud nine and in a bliss from last week in Washington, where I got to watch him as I was in the end zone, 3 rows up, see him run into the end zone for a rushing touchdown. That will always be special for me. He did it again this week. Shout out Josh Allen. Way to be. That is my Mafia moment. Let us know what your Mafia moment is. We want to hear it, man. Hit us up.
I cannot wait until I just expend all the capital I have to get you into like a VIP area near Josh Allen, but it turns out that he's in the VIIP area. Like you're just not quite important enough to be in the super VIP area. But I'm going to try my hardest for you, man. I know you really want to be close to him. You know, you're at the draft, in public, on the field, watching him, whatever. Just, you love him. You want to be close to him. He's your dog, and you have a dog. It's a dog for life. DMX did have that right.
When you dog, you're a dog for life, dude. Shout out to the Belly soundtrack. Shout out to the Mafia Minute. Thank you guys for checking us out.
Yeah, and I think we're going to come back a little bit later in the week here with just some week 5 score predictions, some keys to the game, all that fun stuff. You know my keys, so make sure you stay right here. Check us out, Mafia Minute, wherever you get pods, on the YouTube, on social media, at Seize the Gap FF. Again, presented by Seize the Gap Fantasy Football. So if you like fantasy, you like a little wagering, you like a little mafia, whatever, those things kind of tend to run together. So it's all fun, right? Just when you thought you were out, we pull you back in, just like the Flaps. Follow, like, and please subscribe. Please do not forget those. Very important. We're doing the good stuff, right? Thumb. Yeah, thumb.
Whole lot of thumbs.
Thank you very much for checking out the Minute. And Jamie G, I have to ask you, the hardest choice there could be, do you want to do a Dawson's Creek thing? Do you want to do a Dalton from Roadhouse thing? Or are you just going to shout?
Well, a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B. Give me the Dawson's Creek and Bills make me want to shout. Go Bills.